95% of hide and seek is amazing and I absolutely adored it. And 5%, I can't work out if it's really clever or really stupid. There are a lot of holes, I have a lot of questions. If I, as a writer, wrote this as a narrative, straight away my publisher would go, this doesn't make sense, this thread's untied, there are too many questions that haven't been answered, and too many things that don't make sense. I am, of course, talking about things that happened in the last 15 minutes of the film, so with a spoiler warning, I will discuss those, and if people can provide me genuine answers to the many questions that I have, then maybe I can rule that it's a very clever film. But at the moment, I feel like there are too many threads left untied and too many things that just don't make enough sense. However, the rest of the film is amazing. This was released in 2005, directed by John Polson, written by Ari Schlossberg, and stars Robert De Niro and Dakota Fanning. And I have to say, the acting is incredible. It really is brilliant. And at the beginning of the film, we learn that Emily's mother has died in very unfortunate circumstances. So her father, David, takes her away to a new house, change of scenery, to try and help her to heal. But soon she starts to talk about this new friend called Charlie. And it seems at first like this is an imaginary friend. But then things start to happen, really dark and disturbing things, and Emily blames Charlie. Who is Charlie? Is Charlie the one doing these things? I'm not going to answer those questions, but I was genuinely compelled. I really wanted to know the answer or answers to what was going on, and I thought Emily was a really brilliant character, very likable. Dakota Fanning did an incredible job, and Robert De Niro was amazing as the grieving single father trying to raise his daughter while his daughter is going through some very difficult, challenging times. And honestly, I loved 95% of it. It was literally the last 15 minutes. Something happened, and I thought, oh wow, this is a big turning point. I checked the time, there were 15 minutes left, and from that point onwards, it raised more questions than it answered. And I will now discuss those questions. So there are colossal spoilers from now. I'm about to say what happens in the last 15 minutes of the film. If you can answer any of these questions and help me to plug those gaps, to tie those loose threads together, and make sense of things where there is no sense, then maybe I will think more favourably about the end. But at the moment, I'm more annoyed than I am anything else because it was a beautiful film and the ending's just gone, well, here's 1,000 things that we're going to think you'll find intriguing or a big twist or a mystery, but we're not going to make any sense of it. So at the end, massive spoilers, can't stress this enough, at the end it's revealed that Charlie is actually David, Emily's father. And I have to say, I love the line, now do you see? The moment where he twigs. But I have to say, the bit just before that makes zero sense because something happens to Elizabeth. I don't know why I'm not saying what happens because spoilers, but what happened with Elizabeth made David say to Emily, now I see. I believe you now. I believe Charlie is doing this and it's not you. But why? Why would he suddenly believe that? Why would he start to see this? There's no logical reason for why he would suddenly go outside looking for this Charlie. Also, if he's invisible or imaginary, why would he go outside looking for him? There is no logic to that whatsoever. But thankfully, that's short-lived because quite quickly after, it's revealed that he is Charlie, and David begins to connect the dots and realize that Charlie is his, I don't want to say alter ego, but his darkness. And this has happened because it makes sense. He witnessed his wife having an affair, something inside of him snapped, and he ended up killing her. Okay, fine, fair enough. But then why would he go on to kill other people? If somebody has wronged you, and you suddenly become overcome with rage and anger and blackness and you hurt them or kill them, you don't then start killing other people. Maybe this is who he is, maybe it's a dark part of him that has been locked away, and it took that traumatic event to unleash that darkness, but I don't believe that. And certainly the film doesn't make any attempt to try and suggest that. There's also that montage where they're trying to say, here's all of the clues in the films that you didn't pick up on. Well, the reason we didn't pick up on those clues and the reason you have to put them in a montage is because they're not very good clues. I mean, what on earth have the butterflies got to do with anything? It's all just rubbish thrown together to make it seem like there were all of these little clues peppered throughout this film, but it's utter garbage. None of them make any sense, none of them are connected. I also don't believe that Emily wouldn't seek help, particularly when the psychologist friend came to visit her house. Why wouldn't she say, oh, by the way, my father keeps not transitioning, but morphing into Charlie? I'm not entirely sure of the correct medical terminology, I apologize. But he keeps becoming Charlie and is murderous and a horrible person. Please help me. Why wouldn't she say that? It doesn't make any sense. I do not believe that an 8-year-old child would just get on with it. Even if she's loyal to her father, she doesn't understand what's going on. And I don't think an 8-year-old would realize that her father, David, and Charlie are two separate people. Now, I'm not going to say schizophrenic because schizophrenics are not two separate people. That's not how that works. But I believe this is a dark force that's something beyond that. That's maybe not even that realistic. But I feel like she, as a child, wouldn't be able to say, that's my father and then that's Charlie. I think she'd just see that her father has become horrible and she'd seek help. Of course she would. So that doesn't make any sense at all because she's far too young to understand what's going on. The other thing is, well, two things. First of all, what triggers him out of Charlie? I can see maybe things triggering him to become Charlie, things that upset him or confuse him, will trigger this darkness. But clearly, murdering somebody is not enough to make him go, okay, I've done this dark thing, now I can be David again. Why would he stop being Charlie? What's the reason behind that? And presumably, when he's Charlie, he's got no reason to wash the blood off of his hands. So, how come when he snaps out of being Charlie, he looks down and sees the blood on his hands or on his clothes and realizes that he's had some part in this? How could he possibly not realize that there's at least something going on? Because I can't imagine Charlie would murder somebody and then wash his hands and put his clothes in the laundry until David comes back. It makes zero sense whatsoever. There's no reason why David wouldn't at least have some idea what's going on or see the blood on his hands or on his clothes, for example, with Elisabeth. That doesn't make any sense either. And there's the bit in the cave towards the end, or at the very end, when he's talking to the psychologist friend whose name has completely slipped my mind, and he's saying, no, you're right, I'm David, I was unwell. And I thought, okay, if that's true, why are you still killing people if you're now David? But then I thought, maybe you're Charlie still, and you're actually lying to trick her, which might make some sense. But I don't necessarily believe that that was the case. Also, why were there loads of dolls in the cave? What's that got to do with anything? Yes, visually it looked great, but why would there be loads of dolls there? It's not like Emily had this surplus of dolls that she could go and throw into the water. That's just ridiculous, and it was done for visual effect with no meaning and no logic. And this is so bizarre because up until that point, the rest of the film had been so neat and organized, everything made sense, it was beautifully done, and in these last 15 minutes, it's just gone, right, well, we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff in here. None of it's logical, none of it makes sense. There are so many plot holes that it's 15 of the worst written minutes ever. Now, as I said, if anybody can answer any of those questions I've raised, maybe I'll reconsider that. But at the moment, it's illogical. It makes no sense. There are too many plot holes. The characters' actions don't make sense. And I still don't understand how David didn't have blood on his hands or his clothes when he was being David. There was that very brief moment where he had a mark on his hand and he wiped it away. But again, that would imply that Charlie was cleaning up after himself. And I don't think he would. That's atypical of his personality. Why would he do that? And why wouldn't Emily ask for help when she had the moment? Again, doesn't make sense. Also, what was up with the neighbours? Why were they shouting and pointing across at his house at one point? Maybe they were just saying, you can't argue, we can't shout, we have neighbours now. I don't know. But at the same time, that needed to be tied up as well. So there are too many plot holes. If I had written this, honestly, I would be ripped to shreds. there are too many questions left unanswered, and not in a, ooh, it's mysterious, let's come to your own conclusion kind of way, but in a way that's just really badly formed. It is not a good ending because none of it makes sense. The rest of the film is glorious. I have so many questions that need answered in order for this to make sense. If anybody wants to answer those questions and change my opinion, please do, because I want to like the end of this film. I loved 95% of it. It's just those last 15 minutes that I thought were absolutely diabolical. Really absolutely terrible. It's such a shame because Hide and Seek is otherwise a really beautiful film.